Hyperacute rejection is a type of transplant rejection that happens within minutes of receiving a new graft. Hyperacute rejection is caused by pre-existing host antibodies against donor antigens. In this video, I'll share my visual mnemonic to help you remember all the information about hyperacute rejection so you'll be ready for test day. We're at a college party, and as you know, college is full of romance. It seems that my nerdy friend just got rejected by the most popular cheerleader in the school. Yeah, just look at my young friend there, crying on the ground. Rejection is really tough. Anyways, this guy getting rejected is our symbol for transplant rejection. Rejection for transplant rejection. And this guy is super young, which at Pixar symbolizes a hyperacute disease course. You know, since hyperacute things happen fast, or younger in their course, while acute and chronic diseases happen slowly or later in life. Putting this together, we get hyperacute rejection. Hyperacute rejection refers to the extremely fast or immediate rejection of the donor organ after transplant. In these cases, donor organ failure takes place within minutes after a transplant. If you want to remember this disease course, you can also remember how my friend probably got rejected pretty quickly. Life is tough for a nerdy kid, right? So what causes hyperacute transplant rejection? Well, turn to the cheerleader's foam finger to find out. These big foam fingers are common cheerleading accessories. By the way, notice how these fingers are shaped like the letter Y. And coincidentally, this Y shape helps me remember antibodies, because antibodies are also Y-shaped. Specifically, hyperacute transplant rejection is mediated by pre-existing antibodies against the donor's antigens. Usually, these antibodies are IgG, directed at the ABO antigens on the donor's blood cells, or against donor MHC antigens. Once the host antibody binds donor cells, they start off an immune cascade that results in tissue death and organ rejection. Next, take a look at my friend's shoes. We already knew he was a major nerd, but these sensor shoes are super over the top. Do you see all those wires coming out of the shoes? These shoes probably measure something like steps taken. Anyways, the sensor shoe here actually reminds me of hypersensitivity type 2. You know, a sensor for hypersensitivity, and a shoe is our recurring symbol for the number 2. We are talking about type 2 hypersensitivity here, since hyperacute rejection is an example of type 2 hypersensitivity. This is just a fancy way of saying that it's caused by antibodies, inducing an unwanted immune response. Type 2 hypersensitivity just means antibody-mediated. And from our cheerleader's foam fingers, we already know that antibodies are involved here. Not much else to say here, so let's just move on. Finally, take a look at me here carrying these red Jell-O shots. Yeah, I'm trying to comfort my friend, and the best way to do this is to drown him with red Jell-O shots. By the way, the red Jell-O in these shot glasses helps me remember thrombosis, or the formation of blood clots. If you've ever made Jell-O, you would know how it starts as a liquid that kind of clots up into a solid, which is really very similar to how blood clots. Thrombosis is one of the major pathologic findings in hyperacute rejection, and on pathology, you usually see widespread thrombosis or clots inside the blood vessels of the graft. One of the major steps in transplant surgery is connecting blood vessels so the host circulation perfuses the graft. Unfortunately, if there are pre-existing host antibodies against the graft, the first structure to be damaged will be the endothelium, or the cells lining the blood vessels in the graft. Damage here induces formation of blood clots, and ultimately this stops blood flow, killing the graft. Unfortunately, there's no treatment for hyperacute rejection, and the graft must be removed. Alright, that's it for hyperacute rejection. Let's recap quickly and leave this party. Hyperacute rejection is a type of transplant rejection that happens immediately, or within minutes of receiving a new organ transplant. Hyperacute rejection is caused by pre-existing antibodies against the graft. These are mainly IgG targeted against donor ABO or HLA antigens. Since hyperacute rejection is an unwanted immune reaction mediated by antibodies, it is technically a type 2 hypersensitivity reaction. On pathology, hyperacute rejection is characterized by widespread thrombosis or formation of blood clots, which ultimately cuts off the blood supply to the transplanted organ. There is no treatment for hyperacute rejection, and the graft must be removed. And we're finally done with hyperacute rejection. Maybe we'll have more luck at the tech club party. I'll see you there.